Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to day 3 of writing successful narrative essays. Our learning goal, student expectation 5.11a, plan a first draft by selecting a genre for a particular topic, purpose, and audience using a range of strategies such as brainstorming, free writing, and mapping. Your success criteria today: I can successfully write a personal narrative, including the elements of plot, and self-edit to make my writing better. So let's take a look at the elements of plot again. So we know that all good writing, or all great writing, has different elements to make sure that the writing is well organized. So we begin with the exposition, and that is where the writer introduces the characters and the setting. After that, we have inciting incident and rising action. So there is one incident that leads to the start of the problem. After that, we have the top of what we would call the hill that most of us are familiar with, which is the climax and the most interesting part of the narrative. Then we lead into the falling action, that event that leads to the problem getting solved. And then finally, we have the resolution, which is some kind of personal reflection or shocking, surprising moment or a new beginning where the problem is solved at the very end. Okay? So now that we have our rough draft written and we've included the figurative language and we've done everything, it's well organized with our elements of plot, now we're going to take a look back and we're going to do some self-editing. So we'll take a look at this editing checklist. And if we've done these things, then we'll think, okay, great. If not, we're going to make sure that we look back into our writing and make the changes necessary. My narrative has a clear introduction, body, and conclusion. So that would be the elements of plot there that we just looked at on that chart. My narrative focuses on one event and I keep to the topic to the end. So sometimes when we write, we get distracted and we start writing about one thing and then we get onto something else. We need to make sure that it's focused, and if there's something that is off topic, that we remove it from the story. My introduction is interesting and begins with an effective opening. That's where you have that hook in your introduction, and that we don't just begin with a question. Oftentimes we begin with questions, and there's so many other ways that you can begin a lead or an introduction to your story. You can use a quote, you can use onomatopoeia, you can use a description. There's so many different ways, and I encourage you to do that or try one of those. I have used description and figurative language devices in the body paragraphs to slow down and pace the narrative. Slow down the pace of the narrative. This is extremely important here. We've talked so much about similes, metaphors, onomatopoeia, alliteration, and how that really makes the writing more interesting. I have used dialogue and action to speed up the pace of the story. I have included all the elements of the plot: orientation, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution in the narrative. I have concluded the narrative with a personal reflection, shocking or surprising moment, or a new beginning. This is how you create a well developed concluding paragraph. Then let's look at language features, grammar, mechanics, and spelling. This is where a lot of us get hung up. Don't forget you have dictionary.com you can use on the internet. You're on the computer if you don't have a regular book dictionary that you can use. I have used transition words to connect parts of the story and show the passing of time. For example, the next morning, one day, or try to use some words other than just finally or next. I have used a fair variety of simple, compound, and complex sentences. I have used descriptive words and figurative language devices to make my story interesting. I have spelled all or most of the words correctly. There's really no excuse not to have the spelling done correctly. Since you're on the computer, it's very easy for you to look up the correct spelling. All or most of my sentences begin with a capital letter and end with the correct end mark. Again, there's really no excuse for that since you're on the computer. You can easily look those things up. I have indented all paragraphs or separated them by a line. Yes, especially if you look at the elements of plot and you use that graphic organizer that I have put here in Schoology, that very well helps you identify the paragraphs. So you should have those in there too. Again, 2 spaces in for indentions, or you can skip a line between your paragraphs. The best part of this writing piece was, and this writing piece can be improved if. So really look at this closely and make the changes. This makes quite a big difference on your writing. Okay, so in review, a well-organized narrative should have an exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. And all writers reread their writing and self-edit to make their writing better before they are finished. That's the conclusion of our writing assignment for today. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to your teachers.